Welcome back. It's been an interesting first 2 weeks of the new year, and a lot has been going on. And I want to bring to your attention something I'm finding very odd. And I'm not alone, and I want to call it out and have you take a look at it. Where are you now? For 2 long years, we watched what was probably the largest and loudest pressure campaign the West has ever seen, all in support of Gaza and the Palestinians while demonizing Israel. Every weekend, every campus, every street, every social media feed, we were told this was about humanity, about human rights, and about moral clarity. Okay, that's great. So where are you now? Where are the talking head pundits like Glenn Greenwald, Anna Kasparian, and Dave Smith, and others, and the broader activist media ecosystem that was so loud before? Where are the YouTubers uploading multiple videos a day about a supposed genocide? Where are the activists who dominated TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook with moral lectures? I don't see anything from any of you, because today we are watching massive protests erupt across Iran, people uprising against one of the most brutal regimes on earth, a vicious theocratic dictatorship that has controlled virtually every aspect of Iranian life for 47 years, a regime run by extremist mullahs that answers dissidents with bullets. Last week, Iranian security forces opened fire on their own citizens. Videos that managed to escape the country showed bodies in the streets, body bags laid out in parks and sidewalks filled with people whose crime was wanting to have a better life. This isn't a war. This isn't foreign bombing. This is a government slaughtering its own people. And this isn't an isolated moment. Every day people are being beaten, jailed, tortured, and killed by their own rulers. And that didn't just start 2 weeks ago. That's been going on for 47 years. Women are still attacked for how they dress, just as Gina Amini was murdered in 2022, not for refusing to wear the hijab, but for wearing it incorrectly. What we're seeing now feels very different. For the first time in nearly 5 decades, the regime looks weak. For the first time in 47 years, Iranians believe the mullahs might actually fall. The world watched in 1979 when Ruhollah Khomeini returned and the Shah was deposed. I watched it as a college sophomore, radical cult-like clerics taking over the streets, while ordinary citizens looked on in fear. I watched Americans taken hostage. I watched the US president brought down by a strange cleric a half a world away. In nearly half a century, the world has watched this regime crush dissident at home and export terror abroad. It's the largest state sponsor of terrorism on earth. Virtually the entire world wants this regime gone. So with all of that, with real oppression, real risk, real courage, where are the people who told us their cause was moral? Because the same activists who flooded the streets for Gaza are nowhere to be found. It's crickets. This isn't abstract. Earlier this week on Piers Morgan Uncensored, just asked this question directly to Glenn Greenwald and Anna Kasparian.
There's been a kind of deafening silence from Hollywood. Like the Golden Globes came and went in the middle of all this with no celebrity mentioning the Iranian protesters. Very few high-profile media people who've been very vocal about what's happened, for example, in Gaza, have said anything about it either. And to me, there is a moral hypocrisy and cowardice going on here. And it's linked to the fact that in their heads, they believe this is all benefiting Israel, that Israel's tentacles are clearly involved here in fomenting the protests and encouraging America to take action and so on, which may well all be true. But it doesn't change the fact that, to me, it's warped their humanity from queuing up and protesting in large numbers about what's happening in Gaza, quite rightly, but zero complaint or protests or offers of sympathy or empathy to the Iranian protesters. What do you say to that?
Anna answered the same way she has repeatedly done over the past few days. Instead of addressing Iranian civilians, instead of acknowledging the brutality that they're facing, she immediately redirected the conversation to Zionists. And that matters because her framing, the Zionists are the enemy in Gaza. But here, when Iran is the aggressor and Israel is not the villain in the story, that framework collapses. And she can't say on the subject she can't stay on the subject once Israel is no longer the villain. When Gaza was the focus, she demanded intervention, urgency, moral action loudly against Israel. If you ever saw her on any video, she's always screaming and loudly and obnoxiously, and making her point. Another panelist called her out on that in real time, pointing out she was avoiding the question. And even then, she kept deflecting. So the question about Iranian human suffering disappears and the conversation becomes about Zionists again. That isn't an answer, it's avoidance. Now, Glenn responded differently, but the result was pretty much the same. Instead of addressing the moral inconsistencies Piers raised, Glenn ignored the question and redirected the discussion to U.S. involvement, which wasn't what Piers asked. The question was simple: why the silence from them particularly, and from all the other friends of theirs in the talking heads? And all of you people I'm talking, and of all the people I'm talking about here, Glenn, your avoidance of the question directly is most disappointing. You're smarter than most and certainly could have addressed Piers' question logically. One more note. Dave Smith, who wasn't on the panel this week, but he's on Piers very often, usually alongside Anna. Dave talks endlessly about liberty, tyranny, and state violence. He revels in condemning Israel and its supposed war crimes. Yet here we have a government gunning down its own people, the purest test imaginable of those claims. And we hear nothing from him either. And that's where it matters, whether these words were ever serious. And this isn't just American silence. It's across Europe. It's the same thing. Because Iran doesn't fit the approved moral script. There's no Israel to blame, no West to indict, no narrative payoff. Which brings me to Jeremy Corbyn, a man who spent years presenting himself as a moral authority on prisoners, oppression, and human rights. A man who found his voice loudly when it came to Palestinian detainees. And yet, while Iranians are being jailed, tortured, and executed by their own government, which isn't new, he has had nothing to say in the past 2 weeks. And that silence is not accidental, because these are the same people who spent years insisting their views were beyond criticism, who refused serious debate, who treated disagreement as moral failure. Now, genuinely historic event is unfolding with consequences far larger than Gaza or Israel, and they choose silence. Let's be clear, no one is censoring them. No one's stopping them from speaking out. If they truly stood for universal human rights, they could today support the people of Iran and still criticize Israel or the United States if they wished. Nobody's muzzling them. That's what decent people do. They show up for the human beings first, but instead they stay quiet. And that silence delegitimizes everything they claim to be. Because you cannot say we stand with the Palestinians but oppose Hamas, and then be unable to say we stand with the Iranians but oppose their regime. You have to be able to do both. You can't claim universal principles and apply them only when it's convenient. That's why this needs to be called out. You don't have to love Israel. You don't have to hate on one direction. Then it isn't humanity at all. It's ideology. Ideology doesn't bleed, but people do. Please like and subscribe this video, tell your friends about it, and help me continue to grow this channel. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.